FOXSOUL's Black Report. This is a space where we bring you Black America's headline news, views, and opinions. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
And I'm Demi. And on today's report, Chicago Police Department is encouraged by the drop in homicides. Michael Jordan donates $1 million to an HBCU, and we have your COVID-19 update.
Yeah, we have more on the president's efforts to protect voting rights. Which state is making the case for reparations next? We'll tell you. Plus, a big loss for Johnson & Johnson.
We do have all that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. So let's get it.
Here are your headlines for the day. States are passing a record number of voting restrictions after the national election saw the highest voter turnout in modern history. According to The Hill, Republican state legislatures are doing this even though there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the last national election. NYU's Brennan Center data shows lawmakers in 14 states have passed 22 bills to reduce voting access. Lawmakers in Florida, Georgia, and Montana have passed new laws to impose new voter identification requirements for those who vote by absentee ballot. In Arkansas, Montana, and Wyoming, there are now new identification requirements for voters who show up at the polls. Iowa and Montana lawmakers have passed bills reducing the number and hours of polling places. And staying in Iowa and now adding on Georgia, lawmakers have scaled back early voting hours. In Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Iowa, Kentucky, and Oklahoma, lawmakers have shortened the window in which voters can request an absentee ballot. You know, I've been seeing a lot of discussion on this and kind of looking at reaction to this online, reaction to these laws online. And I wonder how this is boding for the president. President Biden, you know, he's talking voting rights, making a lot of promises, but this is all happening around him, right? And somewhat under his control. But I think a lot of people have been noticing that he is going to have to do something to encourage people to get out and vote like they did in 2020 and fight this even harder. He's going to have to do something to encourage people to do this again, not only in 2024, but coming up for the midterms in 2022. Yeah. Exactly. And so I'm not sure that we've seen that yet. That's something big. But I do find, I wonder if this is going to, again, make it harder for him. This what happened in Texas. I'm curious. I want to get your thoughts on this because I wonder if the lawmakers in Texas made it harder for lawmakers, you know, federally and lawmakers in other states to not be fighting tooth and nail. Because I wonder if they showed people that, hey, this idea that there is always a way. There is always a way. They did something that hadn't been done before in, you know, decades, that had only been done 3 times before. Then it was their last final thing. It is people, you know, weren't happy with it, and they simply walked out because that was the only thing they had left. And so after seeing that, is the president still going to be able to say, well, my hands are tied? Are people going to understand that?
I don't think so. It's definitely an uphill battle. And I think they're gearing up, trying to get things ready for 2022 for midterms. You're right about that, leading to, obviously, the election in 2024. They were saying there was no voter fraud. People say this over and over again, what happened this past election. Yet, the drive-through voting, the 24-hour early voting, the sold to the polls, they want to take all of this away and strip it all down. Why? Because it's going to affect our vote. It was our vote that really took advantage of all these particular things and show what we can do when we get out to the polls. And now they want to change that and try to figure out how to make it just a little bit more difficult.
You guys, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed with so many points that are in my mind right now. Brooke, you made such a really great point about Biden needing to make a really big push. We're going to need an Obama-style campaign when we wanted to get Obama in office the first time for Joe Biden's next term. I think there were 3 main factors that really helped Biden this time around. We had Stacey Abrams, who was in Georgia, who really helped. Black people were really motivated because you had Stacey Abrams on the ground in Georgia. Black people were also motivated because we had Kamala Harris. You know, I make a joke about it, but having her be, a Divine Nine, a.k.a. that was also a big push for a lot of people to also want to vote. And then also you had people just really just want to get Trump out of office. So there is going to be a lot of competition, I do believe, for his next term, and he's going to have to make an extra push going forward. But I wanted to bring up a tweet by Ari Berman, who is an author of a voting rights book. And so he pretty much said that Republicans only saw 16, he says they saw 16 cases of false addresses on registration forms out of 11 million in 2020. And then all of a sudden, they want to pass the country's worst voter suppression law. So I thought that was just really powerful. And also Bernie Sanders, he also tweeted, every single state where Republicans have introduced voter suppression laws. So if you're interested to see that, I mean, it's a pretty long list. You can go on his Twitter page and read that. So, I mean, we are not playing today. No. I love this story here. And I'm also, can introduce the next story that's similar on topic. Joe Biden is also on the ground running as well. So yesterday I told you guys, we told you, excuse me, that President Biden gave Vice President Kamala Harris the task of leading his administration's efforts to protect voting rights. So this adds an urgent and complex issue to her growing portfolio. You'll recall that Biden made the announcement during his speech in Tulsa, Oklahoma yesterday, where he marked the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. In an additional statement from VP Harris, she said that she would engage the public, voting rights groups, community organizations, and the private sector to help strengthen and uplift efforts to vote on voting rights. She also noted nearly 400 bills, you guys, that have been introduced at the state level since the 2020 election to make it more difficult for some Americans to vote. I've said this before and I've said it again. All these voter suppression laws, they don't just affect Black, old, elderly Democrats. They also affect your Republicans as well. So I don't understand why this is such a big deal and such a big push right now. But like we said in the previous story, we're going to have to do a big push to make sure we keep Biden in office.
Yeah, we definitely do.
We're over here going, no, you go first. You go first. I will go then. Friend to the show, Bishop Leah Daughtry. She actually told Aaron Haynes from the 19th News, she said, about this, we know how to get stuff done. We know how to work hard. We know how to put together winning coalitions, how to get to the heart of the matter. We've demonstrated this over and over in this country. When you have a tough job, you give it to a Black woman. Aaron also noting that, a lot of Black women across the country have been leading this push. This exact push. So it's only right to have the highest Black woman in power as part of his administration leading the push from the Biden administration.
Yeah, that is true, too. At the end of the day, we're going to do what it has to be done, do what we have to do to get it done. And on top of that, if you think about it, I talk about social media sometimes. I talk about ways we can communicate and reach more people. This is the way we can keep people on the same page saying, here's our next move. This is how it also worked in 2020 election. So, look, it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think if we all come together and stay on the same course, we can get it done for sure. All right, moving on. Governor Gavin Newsom on Tuesday said California is moving forward with efforts to create a more equitable and inclusive future for all at the first meeting of the state's task force to study proposals for reparations for African Americans. Newsom last year signed a bill approving the task force that will consider paying reparations for slavery. The statute requires a task force to make recommendations for lawmakers to address their findings by July 2023. The recommendations are slated to include details on what form of compensation lawmakers should authorize, as well as who should receive those funds. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, who also spoke at Tuesday's meeting, said, although the horrors of slavery may have begun in the past, its harms are felt every single day by Black Americans in the present. Federal legislation that will create an exploratory commission on reparations for Black Americans was approved in April by a House subcommittee for the first time. It has not received a vote on the House floor as of yet. We think about it, Black Wall Street, we know that we as Black Americans can get our own wealth, but now there's a wealth gap. They took it all from us. We also know this, that Congress approved reparations for survivors of Japanese American internment camps during World War II, Native Americans, Holocaust survivors. So we're saying, why not get it done for us as well? I think it's so important. And a lot of people applauded Governor Newsom for what he did back in September 2020 with the Assembly Bill 3121 getting that signed. Now it's just a matter of moving forward with it for sure.
Yeah, that bill, Romeo, like you said, was introduced by Shirley Weber. And so, a lot of people online were, not even online, just a lot of people, period, because I, too, am not a full believer in this reparations movement that's going on right now. I haven't seen from, even from Illinois to the other states that we've talked about, I haven't seen like a real reparations. It all just feels I don't know, headline news-ish, but nothing really, no real action behind it.
Nothing in stone, yeah.
Exactly. So State Senator Steve Bradford, so people were asking him, he said, well, it might mean free college at our CSU. This is for California, or our UC systems. It also might be zero down payments for first-time African-American homeowners, because there's a Twitter page called Cal Matters. And so they've pretty much been outlining everything that this could mean for Californians. Another idea. So they're zeroing in on the fact that home ownership is the main way to close the wealth gap between Black and white Californians. So they're also proposing that a joint spending plan. So pretty much the state would owe, and the state would own and pay 45% of your down payment. So they own 45% of your house. But in turn, when you're going to make a purchase for a home, that brings down your payment much lower, slashes it in half for what it would have been. So, I mean, I think that's pretty fair, and I would love to see how this kind of develops and the next step. So, of course, we'll be keeping you guys posted for sure.
And, the criticism of this, I've been checking kind of things out online. People saying, well, California, there were no slaves in California. That's not true. California was absolutely admitted to the Union as a free state, but there are actual documents showing slavery happening in the 1850s in California. That is actually, the documents are there. Not only the fact that I think it kind of cheapens the idea of reparations when you talk about it as if it's just slavery was bad, let's pay for it. I think a lot of these groups, people who are actually studying reparations, they're also talking about things like redlining. I mean, we talk about Bruce's Beach, right? We talk about the harms of that, and all of that built upon from what slavery did to Black people in America. Everything else is branched out from that. All of these other issues, redlining. South LA isn't just predominantly Black by chance. It's because Black people legally weren't allowed to live anywhere else. And so I think that there are much more things to study than simply did this look like Georgia? So no, but there are reasons that they should be having this discussion, and I think we should support it. All right, Amazon says the company will stop testing most applicants for marijuana. Amazon, by the way, is the second largest private employer in the U.S. behind Walmart. And the company is making this change as states legalize marijuana or introduce laws banning employers from testing for it. Amazon says the company will still test employees for other drugs and conduct impairment checks on the job, but say some roles may also still require tests for marijuana in line with Department of Transportation regulations. The Seattle-based company also says it will support the federal legalization of marijuana by pushing federal lawmakers, to pass the Marijuana Opportunity Reinvestment and Expungement Act of 2021. A lot of Twitter users seem to think that Amazon is supporting federal legalization because they believe eventually the company wants to be able to sell marijuana. What do you think?
Well, Amazon, they don't say no to too many things they want to sell.
Right.
You can get anything you need from Amazon.
Yeah,
I mean, we saw the other day they have a whole jet now that they have, to not now, but I mean, I learned the other day that they had a jet. I mean, they literally have everything.
They really do. And you think about it, about to bring a whole new meaning to smoke breaks at Amazon outside. I'm joking about that, but at the end of the day, you're true. They may want to be on board to support this because if that is the case, it will benefit them a lot down the road.
Yeah.
Really
You know what? I also, because Amazon made another change, and I'm curious as if this is also another push because companies feel like they're struggling to find workers right now. So another thing, they're making another change. Both of these things announced their time off task metric. And I don't know if you've heard of that, but they have this tool that measures any time workers, especially in the warehouse, spend away from the tools at their stations. And so now they say the way they're changing that is they're averaging the time off task over a longer period to ensure that there's, quote, more signal and less noise. Now, the time off task is one of the policies cited in reports about pressuring employees to avoid taking bathroom breaks, keep up a pace that they feel links injuries to the job. And both of these announcements come, I think, just one day after the Washington Post reported data showing Amazon warehouse workers, quote, suffer serious injuries at higher rates than other firms.
Wow.
Yeah, so these two big announcements may have possibly not just popped up out of thin air.
That part. All right, the Supreme Court on Tuesday turned down an appeal by Johnson & Johnson to void a $2 billion judgment for women who claim the company's talc-based products cause ovarian cancer. The move came in an unsigned order and leaves intact a Missouri State Court verdict against the multinational giant. Justices Samuel Alito and Brett Kavanaugh took no part in the consideration of the petition. The hefty verdict was a culmination of numerous U.S. lawsuits brought by women who claimed that Johnson & Johnson products contain asbestos and other carcinogens and that the company ignored the health risks. Johnson & Johnson in May 2020 stopped using talc in its baby powder, but the company disputes that its products cause cancer. So we're talking about cases dating back for decades, and Johnson & Johnson is facing more than 21,000 lawsuits. As early as 1973, their own scientists proposed to them that, you know what, you should switch from talc to cornstarch, but they refused to do that because it was cheaper, because now we're talking wealth over health. And, of course, who did this target most of all? Black women.
Yeah. Romeo, great point. A lot of people are definitely saying the same thing. That, one, I think that this is like terrible timing for Johnson & Johnson. Like Brooke said, it didn't just, about the Amazon story. I don't know if it just came out of thin air, but I feel like Johnson & Johnson with the, with that lawsuit, with cancer and then with their vaccines, there was, because of Johnson & Johnson entering into the market, the vaccine market, it made a lot of people overall nervous about vaccines in general, because people were like, well, if Johnson & Johnson, this with cancer, how would I want to trust their vaccines? Well, how do I want to trust vaccines altogether? I honestly feel like they, in the last decade, they made $142 billion in profit. So it's kind of like, take the L, right? Pay the $2 billion and just keep it going, because your company has stopped a lot of people from wanting to get vaccinated just by your name recognition and the the cancer debacle. So I feel like let's just pay the money, which I think they have to pay anyway, but trying to, get it turned down it just wasn't good. Oh, we're moving right along. Sorry. Okay, so
all the point to end on.
Thanks, Brooke, but I don't want to spread vaccine. I don't want to be, because I'm vaccinated, so I don't want to seem like I'm anti-vaccine. But I just feel like Johnson & Johnson, pay the money, and then we'll just keep it moving. All right, guys. So speaking of moving right along, all JBS beef plants in the U.S. were forced to shut down production following a cyber attack on the meat producer, over the weekend on Sunday. A union representing workers at the facilities made that announcement on Tuesday. The United Food and Commercial Workers Union officials told The Hill that 8 JBS beef facilities spread across the U.S. were experiencing shutdowns as of Tuesday, while the company's pork plants in 7 states remain operational. JBS is the world's largest meat processor, and the cyber attack affected their servers in North America as well as Australia. So, of course, this put a stop to everything from, slaughtering to, everything. Meat, I just want to let you guys know I've been a vegetarian for 11 years. So reading this story, I was not necessarily upset, because I'm like, maybe this is your sign to come and join me. How do you know? This might be your sign.
I think about this, and, there was a wood shortage during the pandemic. There was and where prices went up for gas, prices going up for stamps. Could this be the prices going to go up for meat now because of this? And is that going to be a problem moving forward? I mean, how many times are we going to allow just the people to hack and get into things like that?
Yeah.